jam sessions down at Tokyo Garden. Tokyo Garden. This is called the Sanctuary Band, and it was under Mike's leadership. So this is like a duo leadership thing, and I wanted to introduce them to everybody. So on my right, Dana on the guitar. Gary Newmark on the drums. And John Lauffenburger on the bass. And my name is Rick Helzer. This is great. We really appreciate all being here. Frank Zappa is quoted as saying somewhere along the line, "Jazz isn't dead, it just smells funny." But you know what? It's very much alive here, and really we're very happy to see you all here. I'm not sure what this is about, but anyway, we're going to start playing. We're going to kind of bookend a real famous composition of Ralph's called Icarus. How many of you are familiar with Icarus? How many of you are familiar with the group that was called the Paul Winter Consort? And the group that came out of that with Ralph and, of course, now I can't remember any of them. Colin Walcott and Glenn Warren. What's that? Yeah, Paul McCann. Thank you. See, this is what happens when you get old. Your memory kind of goes short circuits. Anyway, that was a group called Oregon. And for Mike and I, those guys were very, very influential. And just a real short story before we start. When we were really, really young, back in our late teens and early 20s, the Paul Winter Consort actually came to Fresno and did a concert at City College. I don't know if any of you were there or remember it, but we certainly remember. It was he and I and a dear friend, flute player friend of ours, Shelley Loring, and a bass player friend of ours, Randy Barber. Well, we all went to this concert, and we were so inspired and so blown away that after the concert was over, we all got in our cars and ran over to Shelley Loring's house because she had a piano in the back, and we just tried to figure out what the heck they were doing. And it was really inspiring. So I consider him to be one of my compositional mentors. And I have a feeling Mike might say the same too. Anyway, so what I was going to say is we're going to bookend Icarus, which is one of his most famous compositions. We're going to do one. First rendition is going to be more in the manner that they did it with the consort. And then we're going to end with another version of Icarus that I arranged, which is a little different. Dana on the guitar. All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry about that. All right, the next piece we'd like to play is probably one of his newer ones. Oh, that's right, I forgot all about that. Yes, we're going to do a show and tell. Mike Dana has brought his 12-string guitar because,
Beast.
yeah, he calls it the Beast. And I can imagine I know why, because you got 12 strings instead of 6, and that kind of complicates things with fingerings, doesn't it?
It does indeed. So one of the things that Ralph did that just stunned me and astounded me was that he improvised on a 12-string guitar. Anybody ever watch the Waltons? Yeah. Right. So Yeehaw, the 12-string is really good for that stuff. But I had never heard a jazz musician play it, let alone improvise on it. And the technique of this is so hard. Does anybody here play guitar a little bit? Noodle around? Okay, so you play a 6-string guitar, right? Easy peasy. The 12-string, first of all, it's an acoustic instrument, so it's not electric, so it's harder. I want you to imagine when you were a little kid that you had like the worst bike ever. Like you had a garbage bike that you were pedaling up a hill in the summer, and on the handlebars was a defensive lineman for the 49ers. That's what it's like to play one of these. But man, does it sound glorious. So I'm gonna give the mic back to Rick and just play a couple of notes and just let you hear it. I need like a year of training to play this instrument, which I did not have. So anyway, but I'll just give you a little sample. Sun and like run around in the yard and do stuff. He plays this exact same model guitar, and that's why I bought it.
All right. Sorry about that noise. I don't know what that is. We have gremlins somewhere. Okay, anyway, we are gonna move on. So through the years, the group Oregon, sadly, early on, they lost their, sadly, they lost their percussionist, Colin Walcott, to a really, it was a horrible accident on the Autobahn in Germany while they were on tour. They were in some kind of an accident with the tour bus, and he and the driver were killed. Thankfully, Ralph, and I believe it was, Glenn Moore, survived. Now, I don't know where the other guy was, but he's elected. Well, anyway, so there have been a number of different people that have played percussion. Now, the thing that was really unusual about Colin Walcott was that he didn't play a regular drum kit. He had like some cymbals and a couple drums, and he was a masterful Indian tabla drum player, and he played sitar as well. So in the earlier alliterations of the group, it was very unique. And I just wanted to say one thing before we get into this particular tune, is that back at a time in the late 60s and early 70s when the jazz fusion thing was happening, and you had people like Chick Corea and Return to Forever, McLaughlin's Mahi Vishnu Orchestra, Weather Report, those guys were all going electric. You know, synthesizers, electric basses, electric guitars, whatever. But Oregon stayed true to their acoustic roots. So I've always considered them to be probably the most unique fusion group that came out of that era, because they went in a totally different and I think very innovative direction. So this next piece we're going to play is called Fortune Cookie, and this is from a later era, but it's a lot of fun. Isn't that a great tune? Love that song. John Lauffenburger on the bass along with Mike. Now, when Mike and I started talking about doing this music, I suggested that we should do I should compose something and he should have something with his originals that kind of pay homage to Ralph Towner. So Mike wrote this really beautiful piece called December. Is there anything you want to say about it?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me if I use my teacher voice?
Yeah.
I've had some practice. So when Rick mentioned this project, I was so excited because one of the reasons why this music is so near and dear to me, especially Ralph, is that when I was 16, I got my driver's license, and then I took it upon myself to get reacquainted with my dad, who had not been part of my life up until that point. And I remember the first time I went over to his house. He had remarried and he had a new family, and they were playing this record, and I thought, that's really cool, and that guitar player, what is this? And it was the Paul Winter Consort album that Rick was talking about. So for me, that's just a kind of a coming home, kind of a vibe thing. When my mom passed away, first of all, I was born in December, and December's the end of the year, and so it makes you think about a lot of different things, and I thought about my dad. Anyway, I didn't set out to write a tune as inspired by Ralph's music necessarily, but when Rick mentioned that, the first thought that popped into my head was, well, December. And then I realized, like, years and years after the fact, that he was the musical inspiration for this piece of music. It was his vibe, his way of thinking about harmony and intervals and things. So anyway, that's the genesis of the piece of music, and we're going to play it for you now. Yeah.
Did I do the E, the first word?
Oh, yeah.
It's not your mute, it's not your mic.
You mean in addition to or before? Or?
What's that?
Oh, yeah, 4 East.
Yeah.
Yes, arrangements while you wait.
Yeah.
So we're out.
Yeah, you're out there for that 6 minutes.
It's 4
16
months.
bars? Yeah,
Yeah,
4 times.
yeah. Like we rehearsed it.
Yeah, so this is called in-concert rehearsal.
Behind the music. Behind the music, exactly. It'll be on E later this year. Oh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
consider this next tune. This is called The Glide, another one of Ralph's tunes. And I kind of consider this tune the giant steps of the 21st century. For those of you who are familiar with that classic John Coltrane composition, it's got very fast, dense, moving harmony, as is this tune. But it's totally different. This is not a contrafact on giant step. This is all Ralph. This is called The Glide.
And you have the first one, and I come in on the second one.
That's correct.
Okay, no.
And here-
Trust but verify.
Yeah. Yes.
It's involved, baby.
I hope. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I like to keep a track of when I start writing something and when I finally finish it. And I started this way back in February of 2023, and I just finished it last month on the 21st, probably because I knew that I wanted to do this, and I wanted to write a piece that was a dedication to Ralph. I think one of the things I love about Ralph in his compositions is the incredibly lyrical melodies and the very unusual and very surprising chord progressions. And Ralph really mixes things up. He's also a very, very gifted pianist, and he actually plays piano in the group organ as well. But anyway, this piece is kind of a reflection of my thinking about him, and I call it the poetry of this particular guitarist. To him. Are we ready, Jim?
I hope so. Rick, could you turn up a little bit?
Yeah.
It's hard to hear you.
Hello, hello. Chuck, you're scaring me.
Scaring me too. No, I'll just use my teacher voice. The other thing I wanted to add about Ralph's, there he is. His musicianship is, he's a phenomenal guitarist. I think gosh, now I can't remember if his initial studies were piano or composition or guitar, but he's a master of all those. And then I had an album someplace and it said French horn, Ralph Towner, and I just walked into a wall. I couldn't. And those are, I could see it if you played flute and clarinet, okay, that makes sense, and saxophone, it's all part of the same family. But those things are like, wow. So that's yet another reason that when Rick proposed this project, I thought about it for like 1 second and said,
All right, we're gonna continue now with another one of his compositions called "I'll Remember August." I'm gonna play a little intro. This is what I call a fancy contrafact. Now, does anybody know what a contrafact is? Whoa, yeah, well, Eli does. By the way, thank you, Eli and Bill and Joe, by the way, and Jess. But I digress. Anyway, I'm going to play the tune that this is kind of based upon, but very liberally. But you might hear little bits and pieces of the original piece. And I'm not going to say what it is because most of you will know what it is. got a little selfish. Well, except, are you good? Okay, except, we're gonna let them get in on the front end of this, okay? This next piece is called tramonto. Now, does anybody know what that means or anything? Okay, so I did the typical thing, I Googled it, and the first thing that came up was this really nice high-end retirement community outside of Phoenix. And I said, no, I don't think he'd write about something like that. And then I kind of went down a little bit, and then it was this wonderful Italian restaurant. Well, you know, musicians, we love our food, and we like good food, but I still wasn't convinced that that's what it was about. So I kept on going, and I finally got down to what it really meant. And obviously, it's an Italian word, and it means sunset. And this is just just a beautiful tune. Hey, Mike, where were we at?
We have plenty of time.
Okay, good.
It's 7:35ish, so.
Oh, okay.
Maybe after this, think of some pithy related questions, and we'll see if that works. Otherwise, we'll just keep playing. That's cool.
So anyway, we're gonna let John lead us into this tune. I asked him if he would just do something in front of the tune, and he said, "Let me think about it." I guess he's not about it. He's gonna play something. Yes, William.
So Rick, you teased everybody right before the last song, and you asked them if they knew what a contrafact was. And then you kept it a dirty secret. You didn't tell anybody what it was.
Okay, all right. I'll give it up. Why did I play "I'll Remember April"? A bad version of my. Well, "I'll Remember August" is based upon that same structure. In fact, and then. So it's a contrafact, but it's a very sophisticated one because he didn't play by all the rules. Bebop musicians back in the day used a lot of standards, the Great American Songbook, tunes to write new melodies. Charlie Parker was famous for it. Dizzy Gillespie, I mean, just everybody was doing it, and there's a couple of reasons why it's good. It's good because you get to put your own stamp on the set of chord changes that you like, and the other really good thing is that you don't have to pay any royalties. You see, just here's a little dirty secret about music publishing: chord progressions are not copyrightable. However, melodies and lyrics are.
Good thing, because otherwise.
Yeah, can you imagine the first person that really got the blues started? I mean, the legacy of wealth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Cash it in.
All right, so without further ado.
Rick and I were talking about when we met, and this is shocking to me. Let me just say that Richard Nixon was president. So that'll give you a ballpark. But I had run across Rick's name and called him up. I think I was in high school and you were just starting college, is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
And anyway, somebody went to somebody's house and I can't remember how it all happened. And then Gary got drawn into that, he got drafted into that, and then John kind of came along later, but we have played together off and on for a really, really long time, and it's one of the most joyful things in my life. I can honestly say that having these musicians as part of the family that we get to share with you folks is really fantastic. So thank you guys, and thank you all for being part of this tonight. It was really cool.
So, this is our bookend. This is my arrangement of Icarus. I call it Icarus Revisited. So, it'll kind of start off, I guess the first 10 bars will be kind of like the original, and then starting in the 11th bar, in case you're counting, that's where I'm gonna go, that's where I'm gonna kind of go off the reservation, so to speak, okay? Meet at the end, you guys.
Okay.
Oh, don't forget our ending.
Oh wait, there's an ending?
When you stop.
But yeah, I'm sure it'll be fun.
Because it was problematic. I'm going to speak on the misbehaving microphone. So I have a few announcements and a few thank yous. So we've already talked about these QR codes that are posted around the room. That helps us with our demographics, for our reporting, for our Measure P grant. So if you have your cell phone and if you would take the time to do that, fill out that anonymous survey. Anonymous survey. We won't contact you. It's anonymous. That will help us with that reporting. We're preparing for the next cycle of the grant, so we'll be applying for the next year, and it looks to be more competitive. It's going to be more challenging. There's some other requirements. One of those is we now have to rent an office space. We had not had that. We've had it for a while, and then we discontinued it before the pandemic, and we can run this organization without it, but now, per this new grant cycle, that will be a requirement. So in case you're interested, in case you're keeping track, it's at 340 West Fallbrook Avenue, number 105 in Fresno. Anyway, we do accept donations. We don't pay these gentlemen enough. The Measure P grant doesn't cover everything that we do, so if you're so inclined, we would be welcoming of your donation. I want to inform you of a special event that's coming up June 5th, and that is Friday, I believe. Let's see here. Thursday. Thank you. Thursday, June 5th, the first of its kind concert here at the library in that patio area that's between the library and the street out here. So that'll be at a different time. We're going to start at 30 minutes later, hoping that it'll be 30 minutes cooler outside in June. So that will be the Latin Jazz Fresno Big Band. As you recall, we had the room filled with standing room only, and so this will hopefully give people another opportunity to hear that band locally for free, and hopefully enough room, if not in the patio, then also on the hillside. Make sure you bring your chairs. Sandy, do you have something else?
You bring like beverages and stuff. They said that would be okay. But I would say bring a chair.
So in case you didn't hear that, she's recommending you bring a chair and beverages if you like. Bill, did you have something else that you were raising your hand for?
No, it's the same thing with the chairs, because obviously we have a chair shortage.
Right, I guess that's a good problem. Along the same lines, the 30th of this month, which is a Friday, in Merced, not a Measure P grant-funded concert, will be not only the Latin Jazz Fresno Big Band, but also another smaller salsa group called Roomba 32, and they currently are performing what they call salsa, which is kind of soul music in a salsa style and a little more popular tunes in a salsa style. So that will be in Merced at Mainzer Theater, which actually I think used to be an actual movie theater, and now they have food there and they have table seating and all that. However, I recommend if you're interested, go on the website because there are ticket prices there. So it's not like this is a free event. That one you'll be required to pay. So they have some tables that are that will seat four for, it looks like $65. So that gives you an idea. A single standing room seat, well, I guess it wouldn't be a seat, standing room would be $16.25. So if you're interested, do check out those prices. And then coming the next Jazz at the Library, next month, Tuesday on the 17th, will be Larry Honda and Paul Chagoyan. I mean, Larry Honda and Tim Chagoyan. Paul was one of my roommates and Freudian slip. Okay, hold your applause on this. Thank you to Woodward Park Library. Thank you to 90.7 KFSR Radio. Thank you to the Woodward Park Friends of the Library. Bill Reeve for running our video. Sandy Hedrick for managing our table back there. KVPR Valley Public Radio. The Measure P grant from the city of Fresno. Thanks to our new intern, Eli Parr. Also thank you to Chuck Wilecki, who records our sound. And thank you, Bill. And beautiful job. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you on the 5th.
One last thing for you guys. This coming Sunday, I don't know the date, but I know it's happening. We're having our jam session, our jazz jam session at Tap and Cellar from 2 to 5. And I see some people in here who have played at our session. I'm expecting you to be playing again next Sunday from 2 to 5. Okay, it's the 25th. Thanks, John. I'm not good with numbers. Anyway, so we appreciate that. And again, thank you so much. Let's have another round of applause for Jazz Fresno and all that they're doing to promote the music. All right, and thank you all, and God bless, and we'll see you in a bit.